And we're live. Welcome back to another episode of the Social Kick Podcast. I'm Brian Lundquist. We got a full crew today, all quarantined, all on video, and all over the country. Luke Baddington, Justin Wynn, Dr. John Mullen, and I'm so pumped about today's conversation with just a badass woman, and I'm really looking forward to getting to know her better. Coach Christen Shefchunas. Christen, thank you so much for being on the show. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited, and I'm so excited to have a drink with you guys.
All right. Well, let's start there. So first of all, what are you drinking?
I'm a Corona Light kind of girl, so kind of like.
Ooh, Justin, there you go.
Okay. The lightest beer you can find, that's kind of my pick.
Well, hey, that's in the summertime, that's probably the best way to go. It sure has been hot this week.
Yeah.
Justin, what are you drinking?
I'm going with the Hum's Blueberry Kombucha again.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I like that one. John?
Yeah, I have a Pliny the Elder from Russian River Brewery.
Okay, so Pliny the Elder is one of the better beers, and it's also, you can't get it all the time. So whenever it comes out, there's some Whole Foods locations that get it, but local brewery, kind of a, pretty well known around these parts as being a niche beer, and love that one. So worth dwelling on. Luke, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking something spicy, something citrus, something tropical, and something floral.
Okay. I don't know what that is.
It's new. I like. It sounds. I don't know, like me. I don't know. Tropical is good, so I said I'm gonna try it.
It seems like you drink a lot of beers with the packaging that's like in Pilot, where they have
no craft breweries. So I like to support the craft breweries. So.
Yeah.
He only goes off the label, no doubt about it.
Yeah. It looks a cool label.
Yeah, there you go. All right, well, cool label. You all enjoy for me. No alcohol yet for me because I might go for a run later. But I am drinking coffee on the rocks with a little bit of oat milk in it. So I don't know, afternoon iced coffee. That's what I'm doing today. Every day's a new day.
Coffee on the rocks. I like it.
Hey, listen, I've been doing a lot of building stuff today, so now I want to go get outside and get after it. Anyway, I want to share a little bit for our listeners about Coach Christen. So Christen overlapped to some of my background with Team Elite, and so has also been connected through club speaking with John's wife, Carlene, at PASA. But I wanted to go back. So you, Chris, have a background in swimming as a collegiate athlete at Tennessee, then as a club coach and an assistant coach in college, to a head coach at swimming in Miami, to then the pivot to confidence coaching, actually a stint into the WNBA as a chaplain. And then what a unique history. And now you wrote a book, and now you're part of Lead Sports Summit and the Lead Sports Academy. You started a business around this theory for Confidence Nuggets that you started with your swim team that then developed into a bracelet business. Those are really cool, by the way, and I want to hear you expand on the story. So, wow, what a journey. Since we're a swimming-based podcast, I want to go back to the roots, which we ask every guest, and that's, what do you remember about your last swimming race?
Oh, Lord. 1997. My brain doesn't go back that far. Let's see. All right, I'll just spill the beans. So my junior year, I got pretty good after my sophomore year, and then my junior year, like beginning of the season to mid-season, I was killing it, doing really amazing things, and then did not have a good SECs, did not have a good NCAAs, and instead of handling that gracefully, I did not, and pretty much just needed to get away. Not to mention, there were some personal things going on in my life too, but I had always stayed in Knoxville to train through the summers, and my junior year, I just could not be there anymore, and so I moved. I'm from Pennsylvania originally, so one of my old high school friends went to Pitt, in Pittsburgh, and I made a really, really bad decision and decided, hey, I'll train at Pitt and, maybe work or something like that. And I pretty much partied the summer away, didn't train very much, and then came back to my senior year, and it was honestly my worst my worst season, and SECs, was terrible. And then there was like a last chance meet. And I remember swimming this because I was 100 freestyle was my baby.
Nice.
I swam the 50. I was terrible. And I went to my coach and I said, I'm not going to swim the 100 because I don't want that to be my last race because I was, not good. So, so not a great way to end things in my career, but, I have a lot of great memories too.
Where was that meet?
The last chance meet was actually at that old Alabama pool. I don't know if you guys remember that. It was.
Yeah. I've swum at that pool. So I swam at Auburn. So I've been to that pool, and I swam at SEC's my junior year in Tennessee's pool before they built the new one. So I've been in some of those pools as well. Yeah.
Well, my first SEC's 1994. Auburn had just opened the pool, and so that was our first SECs.
Yeah. Okay. So I do remember. I went to a club meet really early in my swimming life at Auburn when they had first opened that pool as well. So yeah, I think that's the cool thing about the journey that we have through swimming is that like just your last race doesn't dictate what you do next. But you also had an interesting career coming into Tennessee too, because walking on and then becoming an All-American and a team captain is a path that I'm always intrigued by, because it's not surprising to see where you've taken your career now, and that was a fire that was in you before that maybe led you through that. So like, I don't know. I read an article that said that you chose to go to Tennessee because you wanted to be around the best and people that would make you better. That was actually part of why I chose to go to Auburn when I was choosing schools. And so I'm just curious to like, what was it about you entering college swimming that then progressed you through the path of becoming a really strong swimmer and then on the path to coaching and beyond?
Yeah. I was so determined. I was, I kind of like to prove people wrong. And so, I come from a small town in Pennsylvania. We swam $3,000 a day. It was, very little training. And I just really believed that if I could get myself into, a good program and good coaching and a good environment, that I could get, better. Cause I did, for my small town, I had been doing some really good things, with very little training. So I knew there was some talent there, but I didn't know, how much. But anyway, I get there freshman year. And I remember in our freshman class, Jamie, she was from Ohio, but she was a really, really fast 50 and 100 freestyler. And I just made the decision I was going to do everything she did. And she was ridiculous hard worker, ridiculous hard worker. So that's what I did. I just did everything that she did. I followed, her around like a little puppy, and it, I just, kept getting better. But then my sophomore year, cause coming from a really small town into, the big, University of Tennessee, there were certainly ups and downs. I was so naive and so innocent. I was an innocent little girl going in there, and that changed freshman year. So we had some ups and downs. And then sophomore year, I feel like I kind of planted my feet and really, stopped following, Jamie around and really started doing, it became more me, I guess, the hard work and the determination and stuff like that. So, I was a really hard worker. I take a lot of pride in that. Now I will say I was really, really hard worker in the pool and in weights and in dry land. But I always say this, one of my biggest regrets is like the nutrition part, the mental part, that I paid no attention to. So I wish so bad that I had seen that as part of my training, because I would have worked, I believe I would have worked hard at it, but I just didn't see it as part of my training. So, yeah. So, and then, the story, junior year, sophomore year, I ended up like at SECs making top 8 and, and stuff like that, things, that were very, very new to me. And let me say that as exciting as it was for me to finally start getting to where I had always dreamed of being, it scared the crap out of me too. And I had no idea how to handle those fears, back then. That's why I'm so passionate about what I do now. So then junior year happened, senior year. After senior year, I was so burned out. I didn't want to see a pool. I didn't want to see, anything to do with swimming. So got, random jobs, probably 8 or 9 months. And then I knew I had to start coaching. So some little club team in Pittsburgh, they brought me on as an assistant. I had to have 3 jobs to make it work, but I just wanted to be there. So I don't know, it was a couple of months. The head coach left, so they made me the head coach. I had no idea what I was doing. I guess it was a little less than 2 years at that club. And then, I knew I always wanted to be a college coach, and I'd been kind of sitting around, holding on to some boy that wasn't worth it. And finally I was like, no, I need to go after my dreams. So 2000, I started at Michigan State. And so I was the sprint coach for both men and women. So I was there for 2 years before I went to SMU.
Wow. Sorry. I was going to say, I have a follow-up question on something you touched there. So the 3 of you all came from very small towns and all went to pretty big programs, and you had that confidence. You knew something about what you wanted and where you had to go to be the best. At age 17, I was like, yeah, I'm doing really well. I'm swimming for Trinidad, a little island in the Caribbean, and I went to university. My swimming's over. I'm never going to be able to swim past 18. I'm not that good. And so I went to school, and I'm like, oh, let me go and swim. And then I eventually realized I was that good. I swam really well. I almost made the Olympics. But I wasn't scared. I didn't fathom that I could even be or think about swimming at a collegiate level when I was 17 years old. I was like, nah, that's not in me. I don't have that. But all of you had it. You were scared out of heck, admittedly. But Brian, you decided I'm going to go and swim with, Busquets. I mean, John, you went to Purdue, all the way from a little tiny town in Dayton. How come? What was in you, each of you, that made you do that at age 17? I don't know.
It's a good question. I don't actually know, but I do remember the moment that I had a terrible meet the summer after my junior year, going into the recruiting season. Long course. My 2 best friends made their Olympic trials cuts, or their nationals cut, and I hadn't made senior nationals at that point. And I remember there was a guy who I knew from Georgia who was on the team at Auburn, BJ Jones, and he comes up to me and says, hey, David Marsh wants to talk to you. And I said, why? and we talked anyway. And I ended up starting on a book scholarship, and then became an All-American NCAA champion as well. So it's like a similar path to the one that you shared, Christen. And I'm not sure, but I think that, there's something about the belief that you have in yourself. And I don't know, there's a lot that's resonated in some of the things I've already learned about you, Christen, and the nuggets that you plant into your brain throughout the year and for each day, that I'm just getting this better and recognizing those things. And I think I could see the upside, even though I was at a low moment and, in my career. And I just wanted to be surrounded by the best. And the fact that there was an opportunity extended to me, I felt like I wasn't going to I felt like I was going to regret not making that decision and wondering what if, and I couldn't live with wondering what if.
Yeah.
What was it for you, Christen?
Well, I was going to say that, because I was looking at schools on my own, because, I wasn't really being contacted by anybody. And we were going on to visit family friends the summer before my senior year in Nashville. And my dad said to me, hey, would you want to stop by the University of Tennessee? I was like, please, there's no way I could swim there. And so I went upstairs, and, this is before internet and everything. So we had this book of colleges. And so, I'm going through it, and I look up Tennessee, and I'm looking around, and I thought, what could have hurt? Like, let's just look around. And we end up going into the office, and Dan Colella at the time was the assistant coach, but became the head coach when I got there, my freshman year. But he was there in the office and he's like, come on, I'll take you on a tour. And he like showed me attention and like, heard my background and is like, well, if you can go those times, with this little bit of training, imagine what you can do here. And then invited me on an official trip. And it was just like over for me because I was like, somebody believes I can do something. That's it for me. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you about your career through Tennessee that perhaps led to coaching. You say you always wanted to be a college coach. The people that I was around that became coaches during their swimming career, you could tell immediately. You always knew like, oh, they're going to be great coaches. Were you one of those people?
Well, I think that was part of probably why I was, voted captain my junior and senior year, because I think they probably saw that in me. I've always been a motivator. It hasn't even, it's not like I go out of my way to do it. It's a very natural thing for me. So, yeah, I'm sure everybody knew what I was going to do after I graduated.
Where does that come from? How are you naturally a motivator? Is that something that you learned along the way? Is there an early influence in your life where you've formed this personality?
I hope my mom's not watching, but if she is, sorry. She's kind of, I come from a bit of I shouldn't say that, not my immediate family, but there's a lot of just kind of negativity in all of my family. And I think I just wanted to be different. I think I just wanted to take a different perspective on things. And plus I had a chip on my shoulder, man. So I wanted to prove it to people. So I had to keep it positive or it wasn't going to happen.
So tell me about how that led you through your coaching career. So you get the job at Michigan State and then you move on to SMU in Miami, but walk me through that step in your coaching progression.
Yeah. So 2000 ended up at Michigan State. Like I said, they had groups because it was both men and women. And so they made me the sprint coach. And I was brand new, the only thing I knew was what Dan from Tennessee, because remember, I came from 3,000 yards a day in high school. So all I knew, was Dan, and he sent me workouts and stuff like that. But I didn't really know what I was doing. I was, again, a great motivator. I had great relationships with my swimmers. They knew I believed in them. So yeah, there was some success, but I wouldn't say, like, as for me, myself, I didn't learn a whole lot that year because everything was like, I was the head coach of the sprinters, so I didn't really learn that much. And then when I left there, because SMU opened up, and at that point they were one of the best programs in the country. And so go there, and Steve Collins, God, those 4 years at SMU are when I look back, certainly my favorite years of coaching. And I think I always say this, it's like Steve and I, the reason why we got along as well as we did is because we were just opposites. Like, he's the kind of coach that's, loves to write workouts and loves the technique and, the swimming part, where, I'm more of the confidence and the motivation and life outside of sport, because we fully know life outside of sport affects sport. And so I always say, like, at SMU, Steve took care of the swimming and I took care of the women. And it was like we both had these beautiful gifts and neither of us were threatened by each other. Like, we allowed each other to just stay in our lanes and use our gifts, and it just worked beautifully. So yeah, so those were, man, we had a lot of success, and those women were my family, and Steve, I absolutely loved him. Those were some really awesome years for me. So, but of course I wanted to be a head coach. So 2006, go for the job at Miami, and somehow at the ripe old age of 31, I become a head coach. And so, going into Miami, there are 2 things I thought. First, I thought, okay, I need to bring SMU to Miami because we were having so much success, but again, SMU, I was dealing with I mean, we had like 7 Olympians on our team, NCAA champions, world champions. And then I'm coming to Miami. That's, it's a pretty struggling program. But let me just bring SMU, dig my feet in. But not only that, I also came in with the idea of, well, now I'm a head coach. So now I have to do head coaching duties. So now I have to become Steve and take care of all the swimming and the workouts. And then I need to hire somebody to take care of the women, like I did at SMU. And, I always say I'm so embarrassed to say it took me 4 years to figure out that wasn't working, because they had brought me in to build a struggling program. And 4 years later, we were still struggling. I mean, we had a couple, little bit of success, but we were still not good. I mean, and those 4 years, I look back, I don't know how I survived those, to be honest with you. I kept saying to God, kind of like, how much more humbling do I need to take here? I must have a big ego that I need to keep being humbled like this. But, I wasn't good for those women because I wasn't using my gifts. I was trying to be what I thought a head coach should be instead of, using my gifts. So after my 4th year, I mean, ACCs was a complete debacle, and I just wanted out, to be honest with you. And I always say I walked into Miami thinking I was a really, really good coach. And 4 years later, I was terrible. Like, this isn't for me. I am not good at this.
But was that true, Christen, or was it that you weren't surrounded with people who believed in you, which seemed to be the theme, when you swam and beforehand?
So I wasn't good at the swimming part, and that's where I was putting all my focus. And it wasn't even that I wasn't good, because, I can write workouts.
Right.
That's not where my passion was. I wasn't using, my gifts. And so luckily, instead of, actually somebody gave me advice. They said, you never want to be running away from something. You always want to be running toward something. So, so anyway, I ended up staying, but that summer, well, I'll tell you what I did. I stopped blaming everybody else for our failures, and I started looking at myself.
It's mature.
Yeah, I stopped looking at everybody else to change and thought, okay, maybe it's my time, to start changing. So I met the whole summer. There was a sports psychologist on campus that was meeting with me. He was so gracious to give me his time. Of course, it wasn't a sports psychology thing. It was just, me being able to talk things out. I had a mentor that summer, and I just spent that summer really working on me. And I remember everybody kept saying, what are you great at? And at that point, I had been failing for so long, I couldn't remember, to be honest with you. And they were like, well, what made you a great assistant coach? Well, that's easy. I know what made me a great assistant coach. I was, it was the relational part. It was the confidence part. It was, life outside of sport. It was just taking care of the women. And they're like, well, you got to start using your gifts. But, again, I'm a handful, as far as being a female Division I head coach, there's only a handful of us. So, I'm already kind of sticking out like a sore thumb. Now you want me to act like no head coaches, are the relational piece. But I was desperate. So I was like, okay, let's do this. And so that 5th year, I started giving the women time with me, just creating a space for them to come in and talk. Pretty much what I do now, the one-on-one confidence coaching thing. But I started doing that. And those next 3 years, and let me say, I hired assistant coaches that were really, really good at the swimming part.
Right. Good.
So I went back taking care, of the women. And of course, I still had my hand in the swimming part. But I could really put my focus where my gift was. Good. And then hired, these amazing coaches that were so brilliant. And then, those last 3 years, we had 100 times the success that we did in my first 4. We had our first ever ACC champion, ACC record holder, NCAA qualifiers, finally, All-Americans. Pretty much every record, school record was broken. So it was just kind of cool because it was such a great lesson for me. Like, I can sit there and I love to speak to people. I love to speak to groups. But where I think the real change happens is when I started taking them out individually and building them up as women and then putting them back, in the team. Like, that's what completely changed my team.
Was there any one relationship, any one conversation, any one athlete? What was it that eventually planted the seed to you to go, I know that this is my strength, but maybe it's outside of specifically swimming. So, you still work with female athletes today across multiple sports, including swimming. But what was it that got you to step away?
So there was one relationship. So it was she came in that 5th year of mine, and her name's Kelsey, and I share when I speak, I share her story a lot. But, she was really, really good in high school, then went to another university for 2 years and just got worse in college. And so she wanted to transfer, and we luckily ended up picking her up at Miami. Because, one thing I always say, I don't believe talent ever goes away. I don't think you wake up one morning and it's like, boop, sorry about you, your talent is gone. I believe something's keeping you stuck, So I wanted her because I felt like she could be good again. And it's a very long story, but in the end, one day she just got brutally honest with me. I asked her, what are you thinking when you're standing behind the blocks getting ready to race? I mean, we all know that feeling. It's the scariest place in the world, for swimmers. And she finally got honest with me. It was, what if I lose? What if I don't go fast? What if I'm not as good as I think I am?
Usual questions,
years, that she's just been shoving down for so long. I always say, when you keep that junk in, it becomes like an anchor, in you, and you go to take a step forward into your potential and you can't move. So it was just so amazing, because all the things that she complained about what was really, what was keeping her stuck. It's the training, it's the weights, it's the dry land, it's her teammates, this and that. After she admitted that and we really started working on her fears, we never changed any of that stuff that she complained about. And she went on, to win ACCs, to be an All-American, to, go to trials and all those dreams that she had, before. So that, for sure, that relationship catapulted me into what I knew my gift was, and that I wanted it to be not just with one team, but with, all women.
But still, that's a big jump, and it takes a lot of courage to identify an area of strength of your own and reimagine what your gift to the world could be with it. So what was it that, and on top of that, to start a business as a woman, and and that's its own journey in itself. And so, what a bold move. What gave you the confidence to go with that?
Yeah. So I always go back because, I had, down deep, I kind of knew, even though we were having success, I really didn't want to be, a swim coach. I did want to do more. And then I remember my brother and his family were going to Disney World for the week. So my brother said, hey, come up to Orlando, come up the night before, stay, and then we'll go to Disney World the next day. And so when I got there, my brother and I went down into the restaurant, we had a drink, and I was just kind of talking about all these things, that I wanted to do. And I, and at that point I wasn't really happy. And he interrupted me and he goes, you do know you're in control of your life, right? And to be honest with you, I don't know if I knew that or not, because at that point I had been coaching for 15 years. I'm in the swim coach box. This is what I do. What else could I do after being in this, in this job for 15 years? But at the same time, it was just one of those, oh my God, I get one life and I don't want to be miserable. I want to do what I'm truly passionate about, and just something stuck in. And let me say, I have a family that supports me. I knew that if I failed, right, that, if worst case scenario, I could live at my parents' house. So you know, when I say I took a big risk, yeah, it was a big risk, but I also had safety nets, which a lot of people don't have. So yes, privilege. Okay. So I understand that, but I left Disney World, drove back. The next day I handed in my resignation.
Wow. So you just made the decision to go and leap, and then what what was the next day? How do you start building it? What was the input? What was the beginning of confidence coaching? And did you even know that it was about that specifically?
Yeah, you know, I stayed at Miami until August. I mean, I left on, you know, great terms, and actually like even kind of helped with the interview process of, you know, the candidates for the job and stuff. So I stayed there until August, and then I came back. And to be honest with you, at that point, and, you know, a lot has changed since then, but at that point I was thinking ministry. My brother was in ministry, and that's how I got the chaplain job with the WNBA, with the Atlanta Dream. So I did that for, you know, their season's not very long. It was like only a few months. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to start this business. But I got to be honest with you, when I look back on that year, it was more of I just took the year off pretty much. I had been going for 15 years straight. And, you know, I mean, college coaching, like, you don't get breaks, you know, you don't get vacations. Like, even if you do go away, you're still, you know, working, you know, away. And I mean, those kids are always, you know, a part of your daily life, whether you go on vacation or not. So it ended up being kind of a year off. And to be honest with you, right around the time of almost having a mental breakdown of what have I done leaving coaching, because the break had gone on too long and my savings was getting a little tight. That's when I got the call from David Marsh. And he had said, actually through Aaron Charla, he had heard about me and said, hey, would you come talk to, you know, the girls at Swim Math? And so spoke to the girls there, but then he also had me do a one-on-one with Katie Miley. And she was obviously, you know, phenomenal, and we bonded right away. And I guess a few days later, you know, David said to Katie, hey, what do you think about, you know, hiring Christen to come and coach with us? Because as David said, he goes, 2012 Olympic trials, he has 3 women standing in front of him crying. He has no idea what to do. So he's like, can you come help? So anyway, he ended up creating a position for me, you know, with Team Elite. So I was an actual like swim coach again as an assistant coach with David and Bob Groseth. And then, you know, I did the one-on-one stuff with the women.
So, okay. And from there, it's just taking me back to my Team Elite days too. And I know David was good about bringing in people even before that to his Auburn days about identifying a need and just like building a network of great people and saying, hey, look, how could I think outside the box? How could this impact the lives of my swimmers outside of the pool? Right. And what a great intro. So, but then, so you are on deck coaching swimming still as part of that experience, but no longer today. Take us through that.
Yeah. So, you know, and I will say if, oh my gosh, I learned so much. I probably learned more in that year working with David and Bob Groseth on the swimming piece, you know, the technique and the swimming piece and the workouts. I learned more in that year than I did, you know, in my 15 years prior. So it was a really cool year, but then ended up leaving, you know, in 16. And that's when I decided to write my book. Mm-hmm. And so I spent a few months doing that, and also kind of starting my business, started doing, you know, one-on-one coaching with some people. But it was really after the 16 Olympics, you know, I got a little love from, you know, the elite women and even Colin and Ryan and those guys. out on social media and stuff. So I started to get known a little bit more. So it's been, believe me, this has not been fast. It's been a very, everything I've done is word of mouth. So, it was cool. Like Katie Miley. I mean, the reason I got, started working with Haley Flickener is because Katie's like, you need to talk to Haley. And then, the reason I got Natalie Hines is because Haley's like, you need to talk to Christen. And I mean, it's all been word of mouth, and it's just slowly but surely just kind of gained this momentum.
That's funny, because that's how we're talking to different athletes in the swimming community.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, we all have different areas of experience within it in each of our networks, but I mean, this is mostly built off of people talking to one person and them saying, you need to talk to this person.
Yeah.
And that's what happened when we were talking with Carolyn as well. So a lot of people think about, one day I want to write a book. So John is part of this background. John wrote a book too, but like, I'm curious with your take. What's the first step? Like, what gets you over the hump to actually start writing?
Well, I will say, like, I had gone through, I started counseling in 2012, and it completely like changed my life. And so, to be honest with you, the book, even though it is about confidence and I do have stories about athletes, a lot of it is my personal story, because I felt like, I'm such a big believer, like confidence revolves around the truth for me, and just willing to be honest, about what's really going on, and certainly being honest, with who you are and not changing who you are to fit, certain circumstances and whatnot. So, it was a big, big life change for me going through counseling. And so I honestly just wanted to share that story, and hope to inspire other people to do the same, and, share what I learned through that process, because, we're such, guys, you're a little better at this, but women, man, we're just such tap dancers. We perform for everybody, act like we're fine, everything's great. And it's like, the confidence is not going to flow when you're not being honest with yourself. So that's why I wanted to do it.
Yeah, truly honest, emotionally honest, really, really deep down inside. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're a group of guys, and let me just say that out loud. And a lot of the work that you're doing is focusing on women, and the mental approach that women take, and some of the blockers that may inhibit women reaching their full potential, and a lot of that being inhibited by lack of confidence. And I mean, just to be straight, like, there were a ton of women that I swam with at an elite level that would kill it in practice, and then they would show, and this would happen for guys too, but it honestly, like, it seemed to happen, it was more prevalent with women that would go their best times in workout. And so I don't know, I guess I'm curious to know, just like, some beginnings of observations that you see with athletes who are of that, who are in that situation, who are showing those characteristics of, I don't get it. Like, I show up, and every athlete's different, but what are some of the common things that are happening in these ladies' minds that you work with that ultimately you're able to, begin to work on?
Yeah. It all revolves around fear. I always say, so another passion of mine is understanding, like, yes, men and women, we have similar fears, we have similar doubts, but how we process them can be so different. For example, this scientist, our brains are different. I mean, that's a fact, right? But this scientist was saying, we have a left and a right hemisphere, in our brain and stuff like that. And he said, with men, as far as between the two hemispheres, there's very, very little communication. He said, but with women, it's a constant communication back and forth between the hemispheres. And the example he used, he said, that's how I can be in my house in a room and my wife and kids are in a different room. And if I don't hear them, they don't exist to me. He said, but my wife, you know, like regardless of what room she's in, she knows exactly what's going on in every area, you know, of the house. Our brains are just so different. And again, another passion of mine is we sit here and we struggle with fears, and the majority of us are swimming with male coaches who, God bless male coaches, I love them, but so often they're giving advice that works for them and how their brain works, and this beautiful simplicity that you men have. We don't have the luxury of simple. Like, we are deep, we are complex, we are 1,200 thoughts at a time. Like, there's no don't think about it. You know, there's no like stop thinking so much. That is how our brain works. But when we're told over and over, stop overthinking, stop thinking so much, it's almost like we start feeling shame for that. What's wrong with me that I think so much? What's wrong? And it's like, that's just the way our brains work. So there's also a big passion of mine that I want women to understand that our brains do work different, and that's okay. But when we get a thought in our mind, I always say, because you know, it's on YouTube, but some guy said, you know, a woman's brain is like a ball of wire, you know, and everything's connected. That's how we have 1,200 thoughts going on at all times. I always say it's like as we go through the processing, we always run into a what if. And when we run into that what if, we never go best case scenario. We always go worst case scenario, like Kelsey, what if I lose? What if I don't go fast? You know, what if? And so I call them the what ifs. Brene Brown, who's my hero, she calls it foreboding joy, but simple me, I'm going to, you know, I call it the what ifs. But, you know, I make a list of like the top what ifs that I hear, because I don't work with just swimming. Like, I work with all sports, and across the board, you know, you're getting pretty much all the same what ifs. I mean, team sports, you know, there's a few differences here and there because your teammates are really relying on you. But for the most part, they're so similar. Like, what if all my hard work doesn't pay off? For women, what if I disappoint everyone? Man, as women, we do not want to disappoint. What if I embarrass myself? This is one I hear all the time. We do not want to embarrass ourselves. You know, we all have our rivals. So what if she beats me? You know, I always say, you know, I'm not going to say anybody's name, but like a national team, 100, like, not even going to say, I'll just say as 100 of stroke, sitting there wondering, what if I can't finish this? And I'm like, 100? Like, how many millions of meters and yards have you swam in your career and you're scared you're not going to be able to finish? But she's going worst case scenario. Where
was that confidence coach for you your senior year at SEC's or at the Last Chance meet?
Well, it would have, I mean, my career would have gone so different, you know, if I had somebody to talk to. Yeah, if I had known what I know now, my career would have gone so different, because I have no doubt that it was fear and these what ifs that ruined me, absolutely ruined me. But anyway, one of the good ones, I have to say, what if I'm out of my league, or what if I don't belong here? That is from one of the best 100 freestylers in the world. But when she goes up against the best 100 freestyler in the world, she wonders if she's out of her league. And I'm like, you're ranked in the top 8 in the world, but you know, so it's, you know.
That's a common one too. The what if I don't belong here? I think, well, obviously you know this best, but that one certainly hits home for me. So how did you land on, I want to hear you explain the theory around confidence nuggets and building sort of that into the mindset, testing it with your athletes, and how that's kind of become the foundation of the way that you think about kind of collecting these what ifs and building on confidence.
Yeah. So going back to Kelsey, actually, because I noticed it in her first, but you know, in practice, because she and I were working she was kind of my first ever, you know, confidence coaching client. So whenever she would do something in practice, I would, go out of my way to validate her and let her know she's doing a good job. But every time that I would say, you did good, it was please, it wasn't that good. It wasn't fast enough. It wasn't good enough. It was never enough. And then when I started seeing it in her, I started seeing it pretty much in everyone. Like, we just never give ourselves credit. And then the second thing that I saw, and men, you're equal with us on this, I think. We can do 99 things right in practice and one thing wrong, and we're walking out, thinking about that one thing wrong. Like, we can have an amazing set, but maybe the last two we kind of, die on, and they're not quite as fast. We're walking out thinking about those last two instead of, all the good stuff that we've done. So I'm kind of like, okay, wait, to feel confident, we need to feel prepared. I mean, that's part of it, right? For men, especially. I mean, that's kind of all of it for you. But if we're never really giving ourselves credit and, we're only focused in on the stuff we're sucking on, like, how are we ever going to feel, prepared? So, I just had this theory, and for whatever reason, I envisioned our confidence as gold nuggets. I have no idea where that came from, but everybody knows what a gold nugget looks like. And I was just like, when you take a step toward your goal and you actually give yourself credit for it, you gain a gold nugget. Take a step, give yourself credit, gain a gold nugget. Pay attention to the one, the set where you did so well on, except for the last two. Pay attention to the ones that you did well on. And then even on the ones you did bad on, pay attention to the effort, because even though the time wasn't there, you just killed yourself to finish. Give yourself credit. So by the time you're at, your big meet, you kind of have this mountain of gold nuggets, this, representation that you are actually prepared for this. So it was actually Aaron Charla that really pushed me to do this, because I was like, oh, the girls are going to think it's dumb. He's like, just do it. See what happens. So I went out and bought a bunch of gold beads and called them Confidence Nuggets, gold nuggets and confidence, and put them in the locker room and said, hey, anytime you take a step toward your goal, I want you to take one of these beads. It can be, a visual representation that you're doing the work to remind you, that you're prepared. So, in the beginning, I also said, and if you want to give, if you see your teammate do something well, you can, hand it to your teammate. But what I realized very quickly is everybody was handing them away and nobody was taking them for themselves, because it's very easy to see what everybody else is doing well, but we never give ourselves credit. So I had to change the rules, on them. And I always say, because at the end of the day, your confidence is your responsibility. It's not somebody else's. So some of the girls rolled their eyes at it. They were too cool for school. They didn't want to be a part of it. But the girls that actually did it, I mean, it was just so cool to see, because they were taking these stupid beads, putting on pins on their backpacks and stuff like that. And it was just this reminder, that they were prepared, and it really, really changed their careers, for them. So anyway, after I left in 13, I really didn't do anything with it. But then Katie Miley, when we started working together, I told her the story and stuff like that. And one of the things that she really liked to do, because one of the things that I always, with these what ifs, I'm very big on being prepared for them, because I believe if you're feeling the pressure, they're going to come. So let's be, prepared for them, and then make a plan on how to handle it. And so one of the things a way that she handled it, one of the things that worked well for her was writing down 10 reasons why she was going to swim fast, before a competition. And I always say that sounds like something a third grader would do, and she just graduated from Georgetown Law. She's one of the most brilliant women I know. But it's what worked for her. And so when the fears did come, she could kind of, really focus in on those 10 reasons. So anyway, when she ended up making the Olympic team in 16, I knew she was going to be scared to death walking into Rio. And so that's actually this bracelet right here. I took, 10 confidence nuggets and put it on a bracelet to represent those 10 reasons why she was going to swim fast. So when the fear came, she could just look down at the wrist and be reminded of her truth, really, those 10 reasons. And so, to make a long story short, I mean, the girl didn't take the bracelet off the entire Olympic Games. The only time she did take it off was to swim, and she still left it at the top of her swim bag just to catch a glimpse, because when we, go into panic mode, it's like we lose our truth. We lose any sort of perspective. I mean, we just, we go into panic and our brains aren't working. To have something there visually to remind you of your truth. It was a game changer for her. And obviously we know she did, really awesome things in Rio. But anyway, when she got back and told me how much it had helped her, I was like, maybe we have an idea here. So, I have these bracelets where it's one confidence nugget, and then each color or like pattern represents a truth that we so often forget a lot. Go back to like, I do belong here. I can finish. I am courageous. I am prepared. I am enough. I am worthy. There's 25 different bracelets now. But yeah, that's been very unexpected for me to, sell bracelets, because being a bracelet maker was not, a goal here, but I know it helps me, and I know, and I've heard great stories of it really helping, even like walking into job interviews and, tests and things like that, just being able to, look down at your wrist and just be reminded of your truth. It just gives you some stability and some confidence.
Guys, about 10 minutes ago, you started talking about this journey, and you just then described all the most amazing tools that you use to help. I want to ask a question that Carolyn described you as a unicorn, and I want to ask a question that makes it so that you're not a unicorn, so that there are many more Coach Christens in the world, and why. And we're in 2020. So let me go back a bit. I swam in the early 90s in university as well, like you. And we swam co-ed, and club swimming was co-ed. So boys and girls swam together, age group, one head coach, a man. University, boys and girls swam together, same time, head coach, man. All of Canada swimming was like that. Then I started coaching, and I coached age group in London and in Trinidad. Boys and girls swam together, one head coach, the man. And in 2006, I came to the States, and I worked with the largest all-female girls' high school in the country, 100 high school girls. 2 years of that, and it blew my mind. It was head coach, a woman, a friend of all of ours. I was the assistant. I was the motivator. I was the safe space for them to come. But I was like, there's no way I should be a head coach of these girls. There's no way I can relate to them. There's no way I can truly deeply relate. And exactly what you're saying so resonated with me and so matured me in my coaching. And I went on then to be an age group coach in Palo Alto at a small team. And what the first thing I do, made sure I had a women's coach on the team with me. Absolutely. What is it going to take? It's 2020. What is it going to take for you not to be the unicorn? And you meaning you being the NCAA Division I head coach, you being saying what you're saying right now should not be new. It should be common and good. What is it going to take for, David obviously recognized that, and kudos to him. What is it going to take for us to know this? Us meaning not just US swimming.
Yeah, I think probably one of the most frustrating things for me, I always say it's like, I coached for 16 years. I know, so many coaches across the country. I have spent so much time in coaches' hospitalities, and things like that. And, the coaches that are throwing their heat sheets, and they're just pissed, and they're tearing their hair out, and they're calling, they're psychos, they're head cases, things like that. It drives me nuts, because I know they're not talking about a man. They're talking about, their women that they're frustrated with, who do swim so fast in practice and then get to the meet and can't, go through it. It's so frustrating, because it's not that big of a mystery. They're scared. Yeah. They're scared. Yeah. This is not rocket science. No. They're scared. But so often, one of my YouTube videos, I call it "Thank You, Mansplainer," because
tell us about that.
I sent some videos to some coaches, and I got a response back, like confidence comes from being strong in the weight room and being prepared, and and stuff like that. But I will say this: studies show that when a man fails or doesn't do well, in his mind, it's because he didn't prepare enough. Like, it has to do with work. I just need to work harder and I'll get better, right? When a woman fails, there's something internally wrong with us. It's not work, but so often work harder, work harder, work harder, because that's what helps men. But when we feel like something's wrong with us, right, or we're not enough, or, you know, something's off, no matter how hard we work, that's still there. You know, it doesn't go away with work. So these are the kinds of things that I just wish, and I've been thinking about this a lot, because I thought, you know, I just want to even maybe get some tips together for male coaches, because it isn't that hard. And let me say all this as well. I get emails from male coaches that, and let me say this. So when I speak to male coaches, let me tell you what the room looks like. I've got about 25% in the front, you know, in the front row taking notes. They truly, truly want to learn. Then I've got the 50% in the middle who, yeah, cool, they could learn something, you know, but most likely, you know, they'll be like, oh yeah, but then go back to whatever they've always done before. And then there's 25% in the back who go absolutely out of their way to let me know that I have nothing that they, you know, that they want to hear. Like, they will go out of their way to read a newspaper or get on their phone. I mean, people have rolled their eyes at me, you know, so there's certainly, you know, sometimes I think, is it even worth it? You know, I'll just stick to, let me speak to the women, but it's like, I do want to speak to the men, but is it worth it? Because, you know, that 25% in the back is really discouraging, and it's, you know, and it's really, really frustrating. So I guess for those that want to learn, I would love to teach more. But get back to my main point. I get emails from coaches. I want to understand. And I keep saying, you're not going to, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. You're never going to understand your simple minds. You know, that's okay. You're never going to understand our complex ones. But here's a couple of tips, you know, to help do that. And one of the main things is, you know, we as women usually have the answer, but it's kind of down deep, and we need to speak to get it out, right? But so often we go in, and you guys are fixers. Like, that's just a natural thing for you. If you have a problem, you want it fixed, let's get on with it. So you want to fix, and you throw advice at us, right? Which it's out of the goodness of your heart. Like, I get it. It's not, you know, a bad thing, but so often, again, the advice that's given works great for your minds, but it doesn't work great for ours. Yeah. So the woman takes the advice and tries it and fails inevitably, and then wonders, what's wrong with me? And every time a woman asks that question, what is wrong with me? Her confidence will get lower and lower. Mm-hmm. So it can be a vicious cycle, and coaches are a huge part of this. So I wish that more, you know, we're passionate about learning, but it's just work harder, work harder, work harder. It's not the same thing for us.
Definitely. And I've spoken at conferences, and I see the same thing happen when, like you said, when someone's going to come in and talk about team building or things like this, you see an exodus, or you see certain coaches leave and things like that. So I want to, you know, say, keep at it. It's going to get through to them eventually. Yeah. But for those that, like you said, that want to learn, that want to be better, is it having a female coach on staff, or is it having, obviously, a Coach Christen as a, you know, someone that they can reach out to? What are some things that they can do to make improvements? Certainly
representation matters. I mean, certainly having a woman on deck. It doesn't just matter to the women and girls in the pool, but to the men as well. To see a woman leading, you know, I think is absolutely huge. So absolutely. I mean, I'm so sick of, you know, I don't want to say anything bad, but it's like college teams with their obligatory, you know, one female on staff. It's like, why only one? There's other great women out there. Like, why can't we have more? You know?
Yeah, I mean, God, you look at, I mean, a question in the audience asked, what percentage are female coaches? I mean, it's so small. It's 10%, 15% last time I believe I saw, and that's for women's teams. It's insane.
Oh, it is. And the thing is where a lot of the women are actually is like with the younger kids. So the better you get and the older you get, you're not seeing many women. I mean, just look at the Division I, head coaches out there. I mean, what are there, 4 or 5? I mean, very, very few. So absolutely, I wish so much. And let me say this as well. And this makes me think of like Greg and Tracy at Stanford, because Tracy is a mom and that has to be her priority. And Greg is brilliant, in making sure that she gets her time at home, that she gets time off, that she can spend time with her kids. I think I've talked to so many assistant college coaches that get out once they have kids because there's absolutely no bending, with their bosses. And it's like, why can't, I believe you can have both, you just have to cooperate and bend a little bit. But so it's kind of sad to see.
And the results are overwhelmingly show that you change the environment for a woman athlete versus a man athlete. The results are so tremendously different. We are working with a former Lady Vol right now, and she changed her environment, and she is at age 27 dropping times like crazy. Men tend to maybe want to grit it out and like put a head down and bury it. But you change our environment for this teenage girl who's a stud and who's great at age 15. You change our environment and they all of a sudden blossom to be amazing. So the results are there, and it's worth it for not only the fast swimming, but for the human, for being a better person. So why not? Why isn't it there? It angers me. I don't get it.
Tell me about it.
Hey, what's your advice to other women who are in a similar position to you describe it in that room, talking to a group of men or a group of coaches, and some of whom are completely checked out? Because this is something that outside of the sport, like this is women in the workplace and the challenges that women are faced with. It's the pay gap. It's what is your advice to women who are in that position where there's external influences starting to plant seeds of doubt in their minds, and it's then on the flip side of that, the Coach Christen and me is saying, okay, so don't succumb to that, right? Like you want to start to remember the things about, no, I am worthy, I am confident, I am smart, I know the subject matter, I know it better than you, and I belong here.
Yeah.
So what's your advice to women who are in that position?
Well, I think because again, we're not focused in. Even if there's one bad apple in there, we're not focused in on the 99 that want to be there. We're focused in on the one, that's rolling his eyes at us. So it's really making sure that we are, you're putting your focus in on the people that actually, want to be there and are actually, listening. So that's what I really try to do. There's no doubt that it's a distraction because full well what they're doing and they're going out of their way to do it. But I really try to, hey, I can tell this group right here is really into this. They truly want to learn. Let me put my energy there.
Tell me about some of the things that kind of to expand on this conversation to a whole curriculum that you're building with Lead Sports Academy and the Lead Summit team. You have this forum to be able to talk to young women in sport among the many things and groups that you're involved in. What are some of the things that you're starting to build into that curriculum, and where do you see that heading?
Yeah, it's really cool. Kara is brilliant and just so passionate about making sure that, young female athletes are getting taken care of. And so, we created this confidence course, 8 different modules. And, I feel like a lot of motivational stuff is kind of just fluffy, and it's like you feel good for a day or two and then, whatever you just heard is gone. But like, I really want to make sure we're talking about the real stuff that can actually change your life. If you actually take this, not just think positive and, fluff, as I call it. So, yeah, so these 8 modules, I mean, we get deep. I mean, you know, we're talking about social media. We're talking about romantic relationships. I mean, all these things that, and let's go back to, you know, the difference between men and women. For example, you know, you have a boy and a girl and they're in a home where mom and dad are fighting and there's a possible divorce and things like that. When the boy gets to practice, you know, you guys are kind of simple thinkers. You kind of have, you know, generally one thought at a time. So you can go into practice and you're thinking about practice. A girl, you know, she's bringing that with her into the pool. I always challenge, you know, coaches, and I'm like, there's no way that any coach out there hasn't had a moment where, you know, a girl's in practice and yeah, maybe she's struggling a little bit, but all of a sudden she like, you know, gets herself out of the pool and she's bawling and yelling and runs toward the locker room. And they're kind of like, what has happened? Because again, our brains don't stop and we're thinking about home and we're thinking about our boyfriends and we're thinking about homework and what we're going to eat and, you know, and things like that. Where I always think of like, you know, Ryan Lochte and Phelps, who, you know, their home wasn't a safe place. So the pool was, and they could just go there and think swimming, 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 where girls brings that all, you know, with her. So anyway, you know, that's the kind of stuff I really want to make sure we go deep with. And certainly in this, you know, in this time with so much social media and with, you know, so many, you know, just so much fake, you know, on social media. And then we have to live up to that standard, you know, so much plastic surgery and we have to live up to that standard so much, you know, let alone all the, you know, diet fads and, you know, here, drink this tea and you'll have a flat stomach. And, you know, there's just so much that we're battling with that I think we have to get real with because absolutely it affects our confidence.
That's excellent. A lot of this stuff has engaged the audience in some questions. So, Christen, we wanted to bring Justin back in and share some of the things that the audience has been asking during this time.
Really quick, Christen, where can we find these classes?
So it is leadsportsacademy.com. That's where the confidence course is.
And you're talking tomorrow, yeah? You have a talk tomorrow?
Yeah, so there's a plan, like if you become a member of Lead Sports Academy, then I actually every week, every Sunday for the next 2 months, we're going through one module at a time, and they're going to have like time with me to ask questions and stuff like that.
Wonderful.
Cool. Christen, we have 2 more questions here. One from a Chris Ludwig. He asks, when he coaches high school level kids, it's almost always the gals who always ask and never the guys. Does this happen to you or is it reversed?
The guys, I'm sorry, they ask what?
That's not a very open-ended question. So they're asking. That's not a very open-ended question. I think just in general about opening up.
About opening up?
Yep.
He's saying that the girls do and the guys don't?
Yes.
Oh yeah, because we're talkers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we want, and let me say, we also, so something to really remember as a coach is, you know, a man's greatest need is respect. Like that's what you guys want. A woman's greatest need is love. And obviously love in a, you know, not sexual way, but we look to our coach. We want that. We want to feel that you care about us. We want to feel, you know what I mean? We want relationship. I don't know any woman out there that doesn't crave to have a relationship. And let me say this, even because I've seen it, people that hate their coaches, but they're desperate for their coach to validate them. They're desperate to have their coach say, hey, how are you? Or, you know, what do you know, how's your family? Or, you know, just to show a little bit of caring. So yeah, I mean, you know, and remember, I mean, how many more words does a woman speak than a man? I mean, it's, you know, so much more. So we're talkers. We want relationship. We want to be cared about. We want to be believed in. Where guys, I think, not that you don't need that stuff, but you certainly don't need to sit there and have a 15-minute conversation, with your coach.
So how important is social kick?
Oh gosh, so important. Yeah, so important. I mean, and I always say, because this is why I think team building, especially for women's teams, is so important, because if there is some sort of dysfunction, if two people are fighting, remember what I said, when you go into practice, you bring all that stuff, with you. And so if there's dysfunction in a women's team, it affects it way, way, way more than in a men's team. If there's some beef, go fight it out, deal with it. Where women, it's like, okay, and now pick sides and now talk about them behind their backs. And now, so it's so important that when you have a women's team, to keep it healthy and talking and friendly and, feeling like a family.
Yeah.
Cool. Last one, Jay.
Last question. This actually comes from another Christen. She's viewing from Arkansas. What seeds of confidence can I give my 12-year-old daughter to stay the course with swimming and realize her potential in the sport?
I think at 12, it's so important to love it. It's so important that, you're not being made to do it, but you are, actually like wanting to go there. And 12 is such a hard age too, because so many 12, 13, 14, that's kind of also when, girls are starting to mature. And so suddenly their bodies are changing and suddenly there's hormones, overwhelming them. And so in that age group, there's a lot of plateaus. And so there's a lot of failing, and failing brings fear. I always say when everything's going right, and you step up and you go best times all the time, there's nothing to be afraid of. But once you start failing, what if it happens again? What if it happens again? What if it happens again? Oh God, it's probably going to happen again. It's probably going to happen again. So like fear is really entering the equation probably at this point, if there is a plateau and she's not realizing her potential yet. So communication is just going to be absolutely huge. One of the biggest mistakes that we make as women is after we fail, we just go, oh, I'll just get over it, and we don't deal with it. I always say, like, if two guys get into a fight, you can punch each other in the face and an hour later you're friends again. If that happens to a woman, like, we take that to the grave because we just don't let things go. And I believe it's the same with failing. If we don't work through it, if we don't talk about it, if we hold it in, like I said, those things that create anchors, it's just going to continue to keep us stuck. So I think through the process, especially at that age, communication is just going to be absolutely huge. Let her speak, let her tell how she's feeling, let her, I always say, like, after a bad meet or something like that, I know they don't want to hear it, but, before they go to bed, go in and go, man, I'm so sorry. I know that had to have sucked. Like, I know you're so disappointed. Talk to me, Mm-hmm. Just to be able to get it out and not allow it to become an anchor. It changes everything.
Christen, I think what you're doing is so important because there's, those of us in this sport, you grew up and pretty much the only coaches or mentors that you have outside of your home. You have your swim coach or your athletic coach, and then you got your teachers in school, but there's not too many other things where you seek outside counsel about how to be. And the idea of having someone to go to, or a curriculum to go to, or a set of values to consider about how to think and how to frame your confidence, which isn't just about thought, but also about like daily reminders and habits. This is just something that I think is really powerful for people in general, but especially athletes too, to start to consider what other things might be going on that are affecting how I feel, how I think, the results that I'm seeing, and and be inquisitive about it. Like, I mean, I've been talking to people in my life about relationship counseling and marriage counseling and things of that nature, where, you kind of go, why is it that other things in your life you get coached on, but some things are just supposed to be automatic?
Right.
Right. And so what you're doing is just right in line with that. To me, is that you've hit on an area that, it really helps to have a way to think through things. And I so admire a lot of the things that I've seen from you and putting together, and I just encourage you to continue to build it. It's so great that you've hit on this area, and it's remarkable what you're doing for the women with whom you're working and the other people. And I no doubt am taking things from this experience and this conversation too, that I think, even though I'm not a woman, I think apply. And so thank you so much for spending this time. It's been a blast to get to talk with you and learn from you. We really appreciate you being here. Where can people engage with you if they want to hear more from you? Where can people find you?
Yeah, so my website is coachchristen.com, CHRISTEN. That's pretty much where everything is. But then, the bracelets, I have a separate website, which is Confidence Nuggets, confidencenuggets.com. And that's where the bracelets are. And then, I do so much with Lead and Lead Sports Academy or leadsportsummit.com.
Great. That's excellent. Thanks so much, Christen. That's it for this episode of the Social Kick podcast. And we'll see you next week, everybody. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Christen.
Bye.
Thank you. It was fun.